Matt, I think in interest of time, we should start and we will allow people to join. So gentlemen, thank you for joining this webinar. It's been our great pleasure, mine and Matthew's, to be part of this. I'll start with a very quick introduction. So my name is Chirag Shah. I'm one of the founders of Terracez, but have been Samilla will do it for sure. We'll do that. Thank you for bringing it. So, as I was saying, my name is Chirag Shah. I am one of the founders of Terracez. By qualification, though I'm a chartered accountant, but have been a passionate sustainability guy. I've been sustainability advocate, and in the process, I thought that the sustainability journey can't get over unless I really deep dive more into it. And that made me join one of the courses in Oxford, and that's where I met Matt. He was a facilitator over there. Quickly introducing Matt. Matt might be into sustainability since probably we might have even started thinking that what is this, right? He's one of the stalwarts. Has been in this sustainability journey for almost 30 years now, and he has deep dived so much into this subject that he keeps on telling me it's an ocean. It doesn't end. Even if you know a bit or more about it, if you more deep dive more into it, there are a lot of things which you learn every day. And that's Matt. Matt has been by heart a trainer, an advocate. He has been part of various projects. And whatever we used to discuss during the process of my journey at Oxford, I thought Matt was the right guy to even discuss few important points, whether so we had a lot of deliberation that is technology important or people are important, what's about cultural change, and that made us organize this webinar. And great, thanks you guys are joining this to understand more. Quickly on Terracez, we have been into this journey for almost 4 years now. We are Microsoft partners, so we do a lot of implementations along with Microsoft, and Microsoft has got lovely tool. I'm sure there was a webinar previous to this where we showcase that tool along with the Microsoft leader over there. So not taking much of the time, I'm sure we have a lot to discuss. Probably any questions you have, I have a request you put it up on the chat, and I'll try to take it up. We'll try to make it as interactive as possible between me and Matt and you guys. So Matt, over to you, and I'm sure you're going to do best what you always do, right? So you can take it over from here. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Chirag. Thanks for that welcome. And hello, everyone. Thanks for coming along to this session. This is where I'm going to do as deep a dive as I can into cultural change for sustainability within the time that we've got. So I've got a short presentation that will take you through some of the basics of my thinking. Then after that, Chirag's got some questions for me and I'll try to answer those. And then it will be over to you for your own questions that you can put up. But we'll introduce that to you at the time. So since the theme is resistance to resilience, I've started off with this image with a gum tree sort of growing up between two rocks, and as a symbol of resilience. Because as Chirag said, the journey for me has been long. I've been at this since I was a teenager and I'm in my late 60s now. So sustainability is something that I've been working at in one way or another for my entire adult life. And so I have a perspective that is the long perspective. And I've seen lots of things come and go. I've seen great things come up and then collapse. And I'm always concerned about the long view of sustainability. So we'll be going through some questions. So initially, I'll talk about what is a sustainability culture. Then how will a sustainability culture support your organization's sustainability journey? Why is it important? We'll look at that. And then how do you grow it? How do you create sustainability culture? And hopefully, by the time we get to the end of this, it will make sense to you and be a way of bringing together maybe all the things that you've been working on so far, or what you might be thinking of doing as a start. So, firstly, what is a sustainability culture? In the diagram there, I've got a number of different elements of sustainability. So I don't have a definition as such other than what I've got written there, that sustainability is a dynamic living systems process with a purpose. And that purpose is to enable us to live well with quality of life, expressing our personal and cultural values harmoniously while protecting and restoring the natural systems upon which we all depend indefinitely into the future. So we have to do that within ecological system boundaries, and and to be able to do that, we need to have a purpose, we need to have visions and goals, we need to apply principles depending on the area of work we do, whether it's buildings or agriculture or manufacturing. There's principles that apply, there's processes that apply in those areas. Then there's the outcomes that we seek. We engage in sustainability because we want to change to a better state than we currently have. And then there's the cultural dimension of sustainability, which to me is what holds it all together and what is important for us in the long term. So, what is a sustainability culture? So, as a long-standing sustainability practitioner, I've learned from experience that while designing and implementing sustainable technologies are critical for a sustainable world, a supporting sustainability culture is even more important if we wish to sustain the sustainability. It sounds crazy saying that, but we can engage in sustainable actions that don't last. So the intention has to be that what we do is to bring about a consistent and lasting change. So the definition that I use is that a sustainability culture is a culture where sustainable behaviour is a normal and accepted part of everyday practice, especially where situations are complex and difficult and sustainable impact is hard to achieve. And I'm making it very, very clear that this is not an easy thing. This is not just do a couple of things and then it will become sustainable. It involves persistence and resilience and time and consistency of activity. And often that is very, very difficult to do. So sometimes when things are not working, all we have to do is to fall back on our inner culture around sustainability to keep us going. So I use that photo there of this workshop that I was involved in Colombia a few years ago, where getting all sorts of different people together in a room to do a planning process around circular economy. And clearly, so many people in that room had a sustainability culture, and we were able to achieve a lot of really positive things. Okay, but I'm going to ask you some questions just to sort of get you thinking. And this is, to try to get you oriented as to how will a sustainability culture support your organization's sustainability journey. So, first question, is your sustainability practice largely based on one-off projects or reports or strategies or roadmaps or assessments or compliance with regulations or pledges and commitments and things like that? But coherent systemic action with sustained impact is lacking? Or do you find that your usual tools and methods of project management and linear thinking do not deliver robust sustainability outcomes? This is particularly important because sustainability is multifaceted. We have to work multiple different areas at the same time. Third question, do you prioritize economic value rather than balancing it with social and ecological value within ecosystem boundaries? That's a very, very common thing. Without a sustainable culture, a lot of things just snap back to the economic value. So if your answers to any of these questions are yes, then you may have reached the limit of your organizational capacity for sustainability transformation within your current culture. So your organization needs to transform.
So Matt, just to
Yeah,
go back to the previous slide, and it's very important questions, and which we come across most of the times, when we discuss with the corporates or the companies who are in the phase of transformation, right?
yeah.
And whenever we reach out, their objective has always been, we need the reports, we need the data, we have data in the Excel sheet, we can generate the reports based on that. We need a tool, but nobody talks about the cultural change, which is very important, Matt. So I would request if you deep dive more bit on that and explain us how it is important compared to only having the data, tools, and reports.
Well, I'm not saying that the data, tools, and reports are not important. They are, but they get prioritized. And and the fact is, you can write all sorts of sustainability strategies and reports that says this is what should happen, but most of those don't get acted on. Um, uh, most of those, without all the other things that support the activity, often run short. We're already seeing with the rush to net zero strategic planning and action, with 2-3 years ago, all these corporations around the world were making these hard commitments to net zero by 2030 or 2035 or whatever commitments they were making. And already they're walking that back. And the reason that they're walking that back is that there's a perception that this is just a management issue. This is just an issue of having data on what you're doing, and then you go and do it. But I am a believer in the fact that the meme of if you don't measure it, you can't manage it is false. It's a false pathway, because so much of what we have to do, we don't have the data, but we still have to act. You don't need to have extensive scientific data or measurements to know that a river is polluted. You, you're better off taking action to stop the pollution. You can get your measurement regime happening as you go. You don't wait until you've got the data to act. So, so this is why it's a multiplicity of action, and it's the concept of culture as what brings it all together in a coherent whole. So
Perfect.
just to make that clear, I'm not rubbishing all that stuff. Important, but it's got to be in the context.
Excellent, Matt. Thank you so much. Mohsin has a question, but I'll take it up after your next
Okay.
lines.
Yeah, I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting questions in the presentation, so we'll come back to this.
No
Okay, I'll
problem.
keep going if I may, Sharad.
Sure. Perfect.
Okay. All right. So, how will a sustainability culture support your organisation's journey? Will continue. So, the practice of sustainability is about how decisions are made, what are the contexts of these decisions, the methods applied, but what emerges from action. And it's this emergent aspect of this complex task of sustainability is what is important. And that's why the linear mechanistic thinking will not get us where we need to be. So managers often think that these policy strategies and so on, that's sustainability and that will achieve sustainability. And the thing is, the first 10% of what you do is easy. Even the first 20% of achievement is easy. But once stuff starts getting hard, where it's not just a matter of tweaking things, putting a control system on, or just tightening up a procedure, you have to rethink what you do to get to that, 20, 30, 40% improvement, 50% improvement in what you do. And that means you have to actually start questioning what you do and how you do it. Anyway, often the standard actions fail to generate these significant outcomes because they're often not enough. So growing a supporting culture embeds sustainability practice beyond the initial activating and implementing. So if we look at that pattern in that diagram, most of what organizations do in sustainability is they go through an activation phase with the strategies and plans and designs. Then they implement it. So they bring in training, they do workshops, and then have a plan that this part of the organization is responsible for this and that. These are the indicators, and we'll collect the data and so forth. And often that's as far as it goes. So the next phase is about embedding that deeply within the culture of the organization to make all those actions work better and work longer and work deeper. And then if we get that in place, we have a chance of sustaining the change that we make. So that's where the culture is so important. And that leads me into this, that if you go some way towards doing this, you'll position your organization as sustainability leaders and visionaries because you'll have real outcomes to be able to present to the world. You'll be making your organization future-oriented and future-proofed. You'll have better congruence between your visions and actions for sustainability. There's nothing worse than seeing visions and commitments expressed, but no action. You'll be able to engage in integrating different sustainability systems for cohesive action. We're seeing a lot more now that there's so much more happening with sustainability. People are pulling into their silos. So the engineers aren't talking to the accountants. The social facing people or marketing people are not talking to the engineers, that kind of thing. So getting cohesive action between the silos is an aspect of sustainability culture and action. It'll help improve the capacity to resolve difficult and complex sustainability challenges too. And what this means is that in any context, the organisation and the people in it are going to naturally favour the more sustainable solution for any challenge. I'm a big believer in the fact that if you don't go looking for sustainability solutions, you will not find them, and you'll say it can't be done. And that's a very, very common issue. You'll also create more effective external and internal networks for activating those practices. You'll get better understanding of the barriers to sustainability because once you start building culture, the people that are not on board with it will be very, very obvious in their behaviours and the way they present to the rest of the organisation and to customers and clients. It will help you also achieve high levels of compliance with environmental and social regulations. Too many organisations and businesses, frankly, have their vision on sustainability is that they'll aim, whatever the law is, they'll aim for compliance with that law and maybe a bit below it. And they'll try to work out the risk of how far below the regulation can they go without getting caught. So a culture will lead you not only to basic compliance, you'll exceed compliance. You'll also meet increasing social expectations for sustainability. That's only going to grow. And it will also help you develop resilience to shocks in economic, social and ecological systems. A very, very crucial aspect. It'll stop you from doing stupid things like in this picture I've taken of a local cycle path where they put in a cycle path but didn't put in no parking signs. So an example of how simple things can fail badly. Okay, so now we get to how do we grow sustainability culture? And there's a strong link between how we behave and the culture that we create. So all actions, whether personal, social, economic or technological, create cultures around the actions. So if your behaviour as a corporate entity is poor in relation to sustainability, you will create a poor culture, which will make it even harder. So the cultures you create shape ongoing adaptations and the development of new ways of doing things. So if you look in the diagram opposite, we have a situation where behaviour grows culture and culture supports behaviour. And that can be a virtuous circle or a vicious circle. It depends on the decisions and the choices that you make and what you support. So cultures can grow to support our social goals or they can become barriers. So not only do we have to take sustainability positive actions, we've also got to facilitate the emergence of cultures that support those actions. And so growing supporting cultures as part of sustainability practice is essential for the sustainability transformation. So how do you do it? A sustainability culture is not a book of rules or a list of required behaviours. It's not a forced coherence around a codified culture, and that would most likely fail to sustain itself. It should emerge from practice over time through different drivers of change. And these are interacting drivers. So in the diagram, we've got systems of learning, systems of socio-technical interaction, so how people and technology react, systems of human nature interaction, how we interact with the world around us and our ecosystem services. And then we have the feedback from our human systems that can tell us whether we're traveling right or not. So that observation and reflection is part of that feedback. That's an essential part of sustainability transformation. But this emergence of culture is through engaged participants. So the people in your organisation are critical. So they need to be empowered to make their own meaning of sustainability practice and culture in the parts of the network or organisation, institution, community, group or team where they have agency. And this kind of engagement should accommodate diverse ways of being and acting. The reason engineers have trouble dealing with social scientists is because they have different cultures around their knowledge base. And so they need to retain that knowledge, but they need to grow a culture that enables them to communicate with the people working in the human resources, the customer relationships, the community liaison and customer engagement, all those kinds of things. So just to sort of bring this to an end, the takeaway message is that sustainability transformation is complex with multi-scale interacting dynamics, and the current culture of linear thinking is not fit for purpose. So focus on reports, ratings, accreditations alone, while useful, will not lead to sustainability. Change without a supporting sustainability culture is likely to fail. And sustainability culture emerges and grows from the field of sustainability actions through purposeful facilitation and leadership. And sustainability culture develops resilience in your organisation and your projects and your processes. And if you're just beginning on your journey to sustainability, start to grow your sustainability culture now. And that's it. Thank you for paying attention. And it's over to you, Shirag. I'll
Thank you,
stop
Matt.
sharing.
That was really excellent. And I have a lot of questions coming in from Mohsin. So fantastic, Mohsin. Thank you. And I'll take one by one. But one thing very important, Matt. I had one question before I jump
Yep.
on to questions from Mohsin. We always believe that there are two types of organization as far as sustainability journey is concerned.
Yep.
One is transforming organization where they have just started and they want to move the journey. And secondly, I always term them as a regulated organization. We come across all this like you have to have a compliance, you have to file your IFRS S1, S2, or whatever reports are required. How does the cultural change in both this organization differs, and what are the two key elements which differentiate this two?
Yeah. Well, you can write a report with enough information to get you out of trouble. Right. So you can tick the boxes that need to be ticked. And unless the people asking for that compliance, unless they ratchet up their requirements each year, you can sit on what you've achieved in that first year without changing each year after. So that's why the reporting itself, reporting and ESG and all these things are great to get the lagging companies and lagging organizations off the baseline and into the process. But I can see a situation with a lot of the ESG stuff is that in 2 or 3 years' time, there's going to have to be a big ramping up of requirements. And if people aren't already, or organizations aren't already planning for that, they're going to be caught out. They're going to be stranded.
True,
And
true.
and so the thing is, do you wait until notice of the new regulation comes in? Okay, maybe you might get a year. If you're lucky, you might get 2 years. Unlucky, you might get 6 months. Can you achieve the benchmarks in that time? And chances are you probably won't.
Won't,
So
yeah.
the thing is that once you start, okay, it might be easy for the next few years, but it's a lack of sustainability culture that says we're just ticking the boxes and we're okay. Um, uh, but the culture behind that is we're not just going to accept this low level of performance.
Sure,
We
sure.
we want our organization to go higher, and we want to be ahead of the regulations as they get tighter. Something like
Excellent,
that.
Matt. Excellent, Matt. And I appreciate, and that has been my conversation with most of the top CXOs and officials. And
Yeah,
you be a sustainability cultural change leader, or you be
yeah,
a sustainability regulatory change leader.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's totally different if you really dip
yeah,
dive more into it. I'll quickly
yeah,
take Matt few questions from Mohsin. He has a beautiful, valid questions. One
yeah.
is the set of questions which you asked about the sustainability cultural change. He had a question if the answer to those is no. So what he told is if it's yes, you
Yeah.
know. But I think Mohsin had a different perspective. Is asking if the answer to those is no, what is the outcome and how is organizational political influences have on sustainability?
Okay. Firstly, in a few simple questions, they're stimulating questions. I can't say they cover all kinds of organizations and all
True,
contexts. So
true.
I'm sure there's people in the room that will say no. Maybe there are people in the room that are working for organizations that are visionary organizations around sustainability. So they're already beyond that. I'm
Sure,
assuming that there's maybe more people in this virtual room that are in that, oh, we've got to get ESG reporting done, otherwise our interest rates will go up, or
true.
our banks will start putting tighter restrictions on what we can do. So we need to
Sure,
get that ESG report done. So,
sure.
so if that's it. So maybe you achieve the aim of that ESG report to get a little bit of interest shaved off your business finance. Okay, job done and well done. But what next?
What
That's
next?
it's not going to end there. The
True.
pressures on your business are not going to end there. They're going to come in lots of different ways. If you're a business that wants to trade with the EU, you are going to have to change a whole lot of your organization's basis, and just doing a basic ESG report is not going to be enough. So,
Appreciate.
uh, yeah,
Yeah, great. So, Matt, thanks. And you touch upon a very good example on the bank and the bank financing. And we were working
yeah,
with one of the big retail chain who were trying to get green loans from one of the top banks in GCC, and their objective was very clear. Our objective of meeting the sustainable metrics is to get a green loan at a discounted rate. There was nothing
yeah,
much beyond that as a thought process. So
yeah,
I so much agree to you on that.
yeah,
Mohsin had a very interesting another question, and I also echo that. And I always been talking to a lot of CXOs, and they don't think about 3PLs. They more think about how it's going to impact their cost and
yeah,
what is the ROI and what can happen. So his question was, how do we deal with leaders who are the roadblocks to sustainability with respect to values, integrity, behavior, and give more
yeah,
priority to commercial aspects? And that's very
yeah,
interesting. For
yeah,
example, he's saying, I am selecting a supplier, they only consider cost and not a sustainability impact. And that is what we have found, Matthew, and you will also agree
yeah,
with
yeah,
most of the CXOs, right? They
yeah,
would want to walk the journey, but cost is
yeah.
important. Yeah,
Oh, there's no question that cost is important. But as I said, a lot of the time, the people that are making decisions about cost are not canvassing lots of different options. And I would say to people, okay, you are looking at cost. Have you done a life cycle assessment and a life cycle cost? No, you haven't done one? Okay, well, you haven't actually properly costed. Because there's lots of different options. If your costing horizon is the next 3 months or 6 months, you're never going to achieve sustainability. And as a
Absolutely.
world, we'll never achieve sustainability. This is where the big shifts have got to happen. You can do largely a business as usual approach with a bit of saving energy. You could maybe be a little bit more careful about who you buy from. You can maybe check that you're not sort of got children enslaved in the supply chain. You can do things like that and still stick within the known by and large. But you might get 10% of that sustainability thing.
Sure.
And there are places where, businesses are just going to keep doing that. But at some point, and we're at that past that point now, in my opinion, particularly with climate change, particularly with the rate at which ecosystems are being damaged, you've got to understand that when I started this journey as a teenager, it was ecosystem damage everywhere.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
and we've now, since then, we've added another, what is it, another 5 billion people to the planet, and we've dramatically increased our material requirements, and everything's shrinking, everything. And
Absolutely.
and a lot of businesses, yeah, they can keep the short-termism happening, but I think bigger circumstances are going to move. I mean, people in Australia are complaining about the price of things, and one of those prices of things is insurance. Our insurance on
Sure.
everything has gone up hugely. Why is
True.
that? We've had years with the worst bushfires we've ever had, followed by the worst floods we've ever had, followed by the worst bushfires we've ever had, followed by the worst floods we've ever had. We've got places now where you can't live there and
Absolutely.
anymore. And what this means is that the rest of society pays for that. So this is where the true cost of things is distributed. And
True.
so as soon as the corporate sector get on board with the fact that they've got to do a lot of the heavy lifting as well. But in answer to the question about how do you, if you have a recalcitrant leader, um, it depends on how actively they're blocking or whether they're just by omission, right? So if they're actively blocking and a bit sociopathic, there's probably not a lot you can do.
True.
However, because you'd think logic would help. You could make business cases for just about anything in sustainability. Ironclad. I've done it, and I've had people not act on those ironclad business cases. So
True.
the business case argument is an excuse not to do things. So,
Absolutely.
but you could try a little bit of not subversion, but a little bit of inside out influence, a bit of bottom up influence, and
Sure.
maybe do proof of concept stuff that works in your part of the organization. Do something where you've changed a supplier for something. You've adjusted the way you do a project for something. And when it works, you've got something you can demonstrate that could influence the rest of the organization. So sometimes change has to start like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's very interesting, Matt. And I also believe the fact, and you can validate, and the people on this forum can, that the cultural change training has to be continuous. It can't be defined for a month and say, okay, my top-down approach has worked, and we are good to move the journey. It has to be a
Yeah.
continuous process. And
Yeah.
another very important thing which Mohsin has indicated, and by the way, he's also a banker, so I appreciate what
All
he's
right.
trying to say.
So,
Yeah,
not meaning to offend anyone, I just want to rev people up,
no, 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 that's perfectly
motivate
fine.
people.
That's perfectly fine, Matt. And
Mm.
very important thing which he has pointed out is on the accountability, right? How do you make the each key stakeholders in the organization accountable? And Mohsin, just to pick it up before Matt says that, and that's very, very reason that we have started promoting and propagating science-based targets,
Yep.
indicators where you have very scientific way to calculate and define the OKRs around it to keep the people within the organization accountable. But Matt, your views on that? Yeah.
Yeah. Look, there's no question leadership from the top is important, but you can have an organization where there's good leadership from the top, but by the time that filters down through the organization, it can be diluted. Unless that leadership is an active leadership, and that top down leadership has to also spark distributed leadership in an organization. So you get few key people throughout an organization that opinion leaders or capable of influencing the people around them that can give the good messages out, that can also give people permission that it's okay to explore options in this area. Don't just assume if you look at the more sustainable option, you're going to lose your job.
Absolutely.
This is how you can filter down to get people activated
Absolutely.
wherever they are in the organization, to get them activated in the leader's vision and mission. So,
Sure.
it's
Excellent.
possible.
Excellent. We have reached the time. Are you guys okay to continue? We can stretch for another 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
And just in case any questions, Mohsin, I'm not able to pick up yours. We will definitely make it a point to reply back over an email or another call. But thank you. Your questions has been to the point and very important, right? And the green minds, Matthew. I'll just pick up one thing which I always wanted to discuss is how important is to recruit green minds. When I say green minds, is people who are
Yep.
well trained, well ready on sustainability, because
Yep.
we as a company, and Matt, big part of it is we are working on two very important things. One is the fintech idea on green financing, and one is edtech on creating green minds. But Matt, I wanted to take your opinion on
Yeah.
that, because we feel ready people entering the organization, even if they are engineers, coders, or a banker, but if they have a touch on sustainability, understanding, and learning, makes a lot of difference. Matt, how
Yeah.
about you? What do you think? Yeah.
The easiest way to grow culture in an organization, especially one that's lagging, is to hire the right people. So you need to, as part of the hiring process, um, um, try to get people that are really committed to sustainability. Now, in terms of knowledge and education, the thing that's different now than, say, 25 years ago is that most people, pretty much anywhere in the world, that graduate from pretty much any course um, have been exposed to some kind of sustainability stuff in their courses. So being completely ignorant of it doesn't apply. But maybe there's people that assume that once they get in industry, they're not going to be able to apply what they learned at university. So it could be a case of the right people are out there, but when you hire them in, you have to hire them in because they're bringing sustainability knowledge into the organization. And then once you've got people that are predisposed in their thinking towards sustainable ways of doing things, then you can really start accelerating the cultural growth by
Sure.
connecting all those people up in different projects and different activities and go from there. It's a lot harder when you're starting from a base of low knowledge or if you're starting from a base of hostility towards this. And there are still places where there's hostility towards this kind of thing.
Sure,
So,
sure. And just add on to that, Matthew,
yeah,
and thanks, fantastic, is irrespective you are have to abide by sustainability as in from the regulation perspective, or you want to move that journey, we always advocate most of the companies to at least start training around it as part of your HR activities. That
yeah,
gets a lot of
yeah,
change in the thought process and probably get
yes,
a better green minds,
yeah,
Matthew. So
yeah.
yeah,
Well, on that point, every organization's different, and every existing culture in an organization is different, and you have to try to find the openings into a change process in that
sure.
suit that group.
Sure.
And so you can't go into a cultural change process guns a blazing. It's better to be quieter and consistent and um, distributed and action oriented, so that, and when I say action oriented, not action oriented to reporting, action
Report.
oriented to actually doing things. And
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and the learning and the feedback builds confidence in what you're doing, and it builds culture
Sure.
in
Sure. Sure.
that respect.
Great, Matthew. I think interest of time, and I know it's
Yep.
late night for you. I would say thank you very much for this interaction. We'll keep on continuing. We'll have a future webinars on that. Guys, thanks for joining. Mohsin, I have your set of questions, and we'll collaborate for sure. And that has been very interesting questions. We'll have a feedback form shared by Umang to you guys. If you can just fill it up, we can make this webinars more interesting and more detailed as we go ahead. But Matt, thank you once again. It's always great discussing with you, and it's always every time I have even a small discussion with you, I carry something with me.
Yeah.
So thanks, Matt,
Thank you.
once again, and thank you all for joining. You guys have a great day, and we'll have a follow-up session. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Umang, if you can
Thank
share
you,
the
Chirag.
feedback. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. I request if you can fill up the feedback form. Yeah.